The Space Marines. They're perhaps one of the most popular and recognizable sci-fi soldiers ever, and with the decline of Star Wars, they may have even started surpassing stormtroopers, at least where the current popular culture is concerned. Regardless, their popularity begs the question: in a world as rich in sci-fi escapism as Warhammer 40,000, why do people keep coming back to playing the humans? And how does this seem to trace itself all the way back to basic human psychology? This week on Ink and Fantasy, let's see exactly why the Space Marines are and always will be 40k's most popular faction. Now, to get the basic stuff out of the way, there are a few artificial reasons why the Space Marines are so popular. When Rogue Trader came out in 1987, the Space Marines were very different. And not only the Space Marines, as the entire setting had not truly gained creative independence from its fantasy counterpart. The Space Marines were these mercenary-type soldiers, and like the rest of Warhammer in those days, they were deeply satirical and cartoonish, looking more like thugs than demigods. Their foundation as a human faction, in addition to their simpler miniatures and iconic proportions, contributed to their commercial edge over other miniatures from nearly the beginning of 40k. This gave Games Workshop the green light to lean more and more into them, and from the second edition onwards, the Space Marines became the face of Warhammer. The sort of default option, so to speak. Aesthetically, in terms of the lore, but also in regards to how they played in the tabletop as a more well-rounded faction. These factors cemented their role even further, and a loop was created through which the faction was further enriched, became more popular, which led to even more enrichment. Video games, books, shows, the face of new editions, etc. Therefore, what I mean when I say artificial is that if you're a new Warhammer fan, chances are that your introduction to this vast world came through the lenses of a Space Marine. It was their starter set that you picked up, it's a majority of their boxes that fill the shelves. And, as such, it is infinitely easier to get into them and commit, something that obviously contributes to their hold over the community. And so, we can't possibly answer the question of the video honestly before making clear that marketing and commercial strategy obviously affect a product's popularity. But, and this is important, there is something much deeper, connected to the human psyche, that causes the rise of the Space Marines, and by extension 40k to begin with. Marketing is all well and good, but for the vast majority of people, if you paid $1 billion to convince me that paying to lick a pavement is actually amazing, I would likely still not pay to lick a pavement. Any good marketer will tell you that there needs to be a true proposition value behind a marketing campaign. Lies or baseless but consistent messaging will only get you so far, especially if you're a creative business like Games Workshop. They're not lying about the cure for cancer, they're just selling board games. The reason why Space Marines became and continue to be so popular is the exact reason why you, or many of your friends, always pick a human knight in MMOs, RPGs, or tabletops. It's the same reason they identify more with characters such as Aragorn and Boromir as opposed to Legolas or Gimli. And it's also the same exact reason why works of fantasy that implement their fantastical reality into the real world, such as Narnia, Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, and a million more, tend to have an edge in terms of one thing. That thing is relatable escapism. It may sound paradoxical, but fantasy implemented in reality can oftentimes be more escapist than a complete fantasy. The reason is quite simple. It is far enough from reality to enable escapism, but also close enough so that it is you that fills the shoes of the hero. It is you imagining yourself as a student at Hogwarts, a place in Scotland, and even though it may sound insane, the same logic applies to Warhammer. When painting a miniature and playing a game, or reading a book about Space Marines, it is easy to relate to their ideals. The escapist fantastical factor concerns their bioengineered bodies honed into weapons of war to defend the galactic imperium, but the grounded factor deals with common humanity. They have their values, they get angry, they weep, they die even though they may feel invincible. Perhaps many people see in them what they wish themselves to be. Not necessarily a 9-foot-tall monster, but rather someone who is a part of something important. Someone who is willing to die for something they feel is greater than themselves. It may sound stupid, but it is this exact feeling of self-sacrifice for something greater that has fueled ideologies and religions and everything in between since man has been able to form words. In a modern day where this sense is perhaps lacking, many people, and primarily men, try to find some artificial escapist meaning through this faction, a faction that has also traditionally represented masculinity and clear purpose. It is no coincidence that mankind has admired mythological men for millennia. Achilles and Hercules invoked the same feelings to the ancients as the space marines do to us now, perhaps to a lesser extent. The mythos of Alexander and Caesar echoing throughout the centuries into legend. It is something deeply natural to the human question. The lore of the Xenos or the forces of chaos may be incredible, but on a very basic level, the Xenos have a difficulty in capturing that. Chaos Marines may come close, but they still miss the mark in terms of popularity, perhaps due to the more evil connotations around the faction. And by the way, the same feeling of self-sacrifice, greater meaning and bravery is precisely what drives the Astra Militarum too, which is missing out on the more fantastical elements of the Marines and their escapism factor. Simply put, imagining yourself as an unstoppable killing machine willing to die gloriously for something great may be more appealing than imagining yourself as a wretched World War I soldier with trench foot, trench fever, Spanish flu, who was also shot in the head. It is important for Games Workshop to always remember why the Space Marines are so popular. This feeling of masculinity and greater meaning lost in our common, modern lives is a key part of what drives the entirety of Warhammer, and especially 40k. Now the last, and perhaps a lesser reason, beyond the themes of the Space Marines and GW's own marketing efforts, has to do with the amount of flavor available. The customization and detailed lore for so many chapters create a faction that is able to appeal to almost everybody. The Ultramarines and their institutional role and prestige, the Blood Angels with their universal honor and themes of fall and sacrifice, the Black Templars and their endless rage in worship of the God Emperor. The list is endless, and the amount of content for most of the main sub-factions is also endless. And so, GW is able to capture the attention of quite literally anybody who would be even remotely interested in serving the interests of mankind in the grim dark future. And if you're not into established chapters, you're given the tools to truly imagine your own, exactly as you want it, with your heraldry, lore, and characters. They work so well because GW has somehow managed to create a canvas that is blank, but also simultaneously relates to us in a meaningful way. All of this combined with, simply put, cool aesthetics and fun gameplay, and you have your answer. Remove any one of those pieces, and especially the theoretical human foundation and themes, and you immediately have a very big problem. If you'd like to support the channel and not miss out on future videos, please consider subscribing. You can also click the link on the right to become a channel member and get early access to all of my content.